my name is Rachel, and today I'm going to be very brief. So, today I'm bringing you my top 10 favorite books that I read in 2019. But first of all, this ugly voice. So, basically, I'm going to keep it short and sweet because I sound like I'm dying. But really, my voice is just gone. So, just bear with me. I really wanted to put this video up anyway. My goal this year was to make a video every Wednesday. And of course, like the second Wednesday, I get this. But we're going to persevere. The second thing I want to let you know is that these are just books that I read in 2019, not necessarily published in 2019, although several of these actually were published in 2019 now that I'm thinking about my list. And then third, obviously, please keep in mind that these are just my own personal favorite 10. It has a lot to do with what was going on with me and what I brought to each of these books that made them one of my favorite books. So again, just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and jump in. And coming in at number 10 is The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. I just am a huge fan of her writing. She writes great historical fiction for teens, and I got to meet her this year, and she was just absolutely wonderful. And this one follows a boy who is Spanish American from Texas who's visiting Spain and meets a girl who actually is from Spain right after the conclusion of the Spanish Civil War. And there's mystery, there's intrigue, there's romance, there's everything in this book. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I think this was just a great gateway into a history that I would not have known about otherwise. So I'm very grateful for that, and I really enjoy this one. Next up is another book that is kind of historical, and that is The Hunger by Alma Katsu. And this was completely terrifying. I was creeped out the entire time, and I loved it. This is basically a reimagining of the Donner Party on their trip down the Oregon Trail. And if you don't know what happens, it's not good. And this was even creepier than knowing what really happens. Oh my gosh, it was so chilling, and I am so excited to get to another Alma Katsu in 2020. I believe she's releasing a Titanic-based thriller, and I am here for it. I'm really excited, but I really like this one. If you are into anything Donner Party, Oregon Trail with a little bit of horror mixed in, this is one for you. Next up is an author that I am never surprised to see on my top 10 list, and that is Sandhya Menon. In particular, this year, There's Something About Sweetie, and I really liked this particular romance. I thought that our main characters were just very lovable, and I love exploring cultures that are a little different than my own. We do have two American teenagers here, but their religious beliefs have them interact romantically a little different than I might a partner. So I just find it fascinating to read about how in their culture they would arrange these dates for themselves under the guardianship of one set of parents, while another is maybe kind of left in the dark for various reasons for this book. But I really enjoyed it. I loved their dates. I thought it was so cute and fun, and we're going to be getting two new Sandhya Menon, I believe, contemporaries this year, and I'm really excited for it. Always excited for it. I just love her love stories. They're lovely. Coming in at number 7 is Refugee by Alan Gratz. This was awarded the Buckeye Book Award for grades 6 through 8. I believe it was last year, and I can see why. It was amazing. This follows the story of 3 teenagers and their accompanying family members fleeing different countries. So the first teenager and their family are fleeing the Nazis and heading towards Cuba. Then we have a family fleeing from Cuba coming to the United States. Then we have a family fleeing Syria and I believe heading to Germany. So they kind of intermingle, they intertwine, and they're all have threads of similarity running throughout them, and it's just heart-wrenching and thrilling and interesting and just fantastic. I really, really enjoyed this book. Coming in at number 6 is a mystery that I really wasn't anticipating enjoying as much as I did, and that is One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. And I read this with my high school students for our book club, and I think the thing that I remember most about this book is that I just was interested for the whole time. I might have predicted like one thing happening, but then she'd hit me with another. I mean, it was just, I was intrigued the entire time I was reading this book, and I have yet to meet anybody else who has like been like, oh, I was bored. Like this book is not boring. It's really interesting. It's really fun. It's a good mystery for teenagers, especially. If you don't know, for some reason, the premise of this book it's essentially like a closed room murder mystery for the Breakfast Club. There's 5 students in detention, and only 4 of them survive the detention, and then you spend the rest of the book trying to kind of unwrap what is happening, really. And everybody's got their own little secrets and their own little mysteries and their own little side stories, and it's just very interesting. And I cannot wait to pick up the sequel, which just came out, and there is filming going on now for a TV show, so we'll have to stay tuned for that. Coming in at number 5 is also a surprise, and that is Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered by Karen Gilgariff and Georgia Hardstark. They do a podcast called My Favorite Murder that I love. But if you listen to the podcast, I wonder if you felt like I did, and that this is not the book I was expecting, but it is 100% the book that I wanted. It doesn't have any true crime in it. For them to do such a successful true crime podcast, I was expecting more true crime. But it's really more a dual memoir of our 2 narrators, our 2 podcasters, and I found that even better. I really, really liked this. I think it was a lot more heartwarming and well planned, well thought out, well written than I was expecting, because sometimes it does seem like the podcast is more just like them chatting. And this felt like very intentional, and I really enjoyed it. So if you are a fan of My Favorite Murder, I would definitely recommend this book. However, just go into it knowing that it's not going to be like true crime story after true crime story, but you are going to feel like you know them a little more, I think, afterwards. And I really enjoyed that all of the chapter headings were like famous sayings from the show, and I just really enjoyed this a lot. Next up at number 4 is a book that I have to say I heard mentioned. I believe it was on somebody's TBR from the girls over at Owl Crate, and I'll definitely leave their channel link down below since I just mentioned them so that you can go see them. But one of the girls mentioned on a TBR that they were going to do this book, and I immediately knew that I had to get my hands on this book. So I literally went to the bookstore, I think the next day, and bought this book, and I really enjoyed it. And that is In the Hall with the Knife. This is by Diana Peterfreund, and it's a clue mystery. I believe it's going to be a series, and it's a YA murder mystery, and it's based off the board game Clue. I mean, that's all I needed to hear. That's all I needed. And it's all I wanted. I loved this book. It was so much fun. Like, it's not like the most devious and well planned out murder mystery in all time, but it was exactly what I wanted to read, and I loved it. We have a bunch of teenagers who are all sequestered in their boarding school in Maine when the weather kind of forces them all into one dormitory that becomes the clue board. And I have to tell you, when they revealed a secret passage, like the sound that escaped me like audibly was really funny. It was like a giggle, cackle, gasp, and it was amazing. I loved this book. It was so much fun. It was cheesy and kind of ridiculous, and I loved it. It was exactly what I wanted, and I cannot wait until they have more of these out. So thank you to whichever one of the Owl Creek girls put this on their TBR and brought this beautiful book into my life. I loved it. Next up at number 3 is Shout by Laurie Halse Anderson. If you've read Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson, I've been marketing this to my teens as basically like the memoir version, the true version, the nonfiction version of Speak. This really is Laurie Halse Anderson's true version of her account of being sexually assaulted as a teenager. And it's everything that you think it would be based on that description. It's heartbreaking and heartwarming and just hard, I guess. I would recommend the audiobook. It was fantastic, and this is all told in verse, which for some reason makes it even more like gut-wrenching to read, but it's just really good. It's fantastic. all of the trigger warnings and all of the feelings are what you should expect from this one. And number 2 on my list, I'm very surprised that it's an outer space book because I hate books set in outer space. I just don't tend to like them. Once we leave our stratosphere or whatever, I don't care. I just don't care anymore. I don't care what happens to people. But I decided to give this one a try because of who wrote it. And that is the team of Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, who wrote the Illuminae series. I've read 2 in the Illuminae series and loved them. So I trusted them to take me into outer space and keep me interested. And did they come through for me? I have to say this book really grabbed me, I think because of the time that I read it. I read it over the summer when I just was not into anything else. I wasn't enjoying any other book I picked up, but I enjoyed this book. I loved this book. It was so fascinating. We're in outer space with this ragtag team, and they're all kind of fun in their own way. And I mean, it's just wonderful. There's a little bit of romance. There's a little bit of like a chase. They're kind of on the lam from their organization, and there's a heist. I mean, there's so much happening, and I just really, really enjoyed it. And I was able to get over the fact that we were in space and just totally enjoy the ride for this book. And this is definitely going to be my most anticipated sequel of 2020. Cannot wait for May to come and I can read the second in this series. Gotta know what happens to my favorites. And I'm going to put a picture up of the cover because heart eyes. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. Thank you to these wonderful authors for bringing this fabulous book into my life. I just want to talk to everybody about this book. So if you've read this book, tell me how much you loved it, because I loved it. And finally, my number 1 pick for the year. I feel like I didn't know it was going to be the number 1 when I was reading it, but looking back, I don't know how this could be any other place. I don't know where else it could fit because I just enjoyed it so much. And that is Everything's Trash, But It's Okay by Phoebe Robinson. I read her other book as well, and it was also fantastic, but I think this is even like a little bit better. It's just full of cultural references and current climate references, and it's just fantastic. It's fun. It's everything that I wanted in an essay collection about life right now, of what it is to be roughly a millennial in the world right now. It's fantastic, and I hope that she talks to everyone exactly how she writes in these books, because that would make my soul happy. It's just so funny and like true. Like it feels like she's talking right to me, and it feels like we're like BFFs, and it's amazing. It's just so funny. I don't know how an essay collection can just be so fun to read. I don't know how she does it. It's amazing. I have yet to really get into her podcast or any of her like comedy, but I will forever be reading her books. They're fantastic. So if you have not read Phoebe Robinson at all, let alone this book, like do that soon, because you will not regret it. And yeah, let's look forward together to her next collection of essays. So there you have my top 10 books of 2019. Let me know if any of these were also one of your favorites. Let me know if you are now going to read any of these because of my recommendation. That would be fab. And also, please let me know your top pick from 2019. I would love to hear and maybe read it in the future if I have not yet. And thank you so much for putting up with my creepy voice. Hopefully next week it'll be back to being just normal level creepy and not this level creepy. So thank you, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.